Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Lauren, and I'm going to be the one presenting the information today. We will have Carrie on as well. She's going to be helping me facilitate if there are questions throughout. We are really welcoming and encouraging interaction, so feel free to raise your hand or send a message in the chat box. She'll be able to see that, and then we can open that up for questions and kind of create some open dialogue there. So I am with Project Solutions, and our topic that we are going to be covering today is going to be crossing the bridge, next steps in managing and leading. We did have a presentation right before this, and if you didn't have a chance to watch that, that's okay. This information will still make sense to you, but we might refer back to it just a few times throughout the presentation today as we go along. Okay, so to start with an overview, today more than ever, shaping how an organization ticks and how employees function within our top priorities. So we're going to cover these key topic areas that look deeper into what makes an individual and not just a leader or a manager, but an effective leader or manager. So the overview, we're going to do a diverse workforce recap, touch again on some of the topics we discussed last time, but then we're going to go into effective leadership and management tactics. And so what makes an effective leader? What are those drivers? How do we strengthen teamwork, trust, personal accountability? And then finally, how does this apply? How do we maximize performance, strengthen leadership, strengthen our own, again, strengthen teamwork, and add value to our organizations? Okay, so to start, here are some interesting statistics when it comes to a diverse workforce. Did you know that more than 40% of new entrants into the US workforce are from non-majority groups? 81.4% of 25 to 54-year-olds are active within the labor force. So we have a lot more generations than ever that are still in the workforce or entering the workforce. And so we're having to be dynamic and learn how to manage multiple groups of people. And then 40.5% of those 55-year-olds and older are active within the labor force. If you had a chance to watch our last presentation, you learned today's business environment may be the first to include 5 different generations all working side by side. So I guess then the first question that I would like to ask our audience today, does anyone want to share how many generations they believe are in their current workforce? You can send a quick chat again or open up to raise your hand, request to speak, and share how many generations you have in your workforce. And I don't see anything coming in quite yet. Again, you can still send a chat, but I'd just like to share our example. So here at PSI, we do have all 5 generations represented. It's no secret that this can come with its own set of challenges. Each different generation has their own expectations, communication styles, and perspectives. But even with such a diverse set of experiences, employees are encouraged to embrace differences in thought to really drive business forward. When we're faced with challenges in particular, more ideas and possible solutions are brought to the table, and it's truly encouraged within the organization to bring a variety of perspectives forward. This not only helps you come up with a solution or come up with maybe a more unique solution, but you can also get to that solution a little bit faster. So next, we're going to look again at the benefits of a diverse workforce. So some of the many different benefits include variety of perspectives, improved employee engagement, increased problem solving, reduced employee turnover, improved company reputation, and improved hiring results. So the question really does become, how do we leverage these benefits? How do we take what we know is a benefit and actually apply it to build trust and strengthen relationships across organizational lines? The strategy that we're looking at today is by implementing effective leadership and effective management. So what are those next steps that allow us to manage and lead this diverse workforce? Stay tuned because we are going to walk through just that. So let's take a look first at what we will have an opportunity to learn today. We're going to be reviewing what we call the 5 drivers of effective leadership. It's important to learn because leaders who demonstrate certain principles create an environment where employees are motivated, not forced, to bring their best to work each day. Certain principles strengthen teamwork and trust, leading to a more cohesive and creative, constructive workforce. And how it will help us. We'll be able to use these strategies to maximize benefit, maximize performance, become a stronger leader, and add more value to our organizations. So first, we'll get into the 5 drivers of successful leadership. So those 5 drivers are self-direction, people skills, process skills, communication, and accountability. Oh, awesome. I just saw the chat. 4 different generations in the workforce. You can really tell the difference. Absolutely. All right, so driver number 1 is self-direction. So the traits of self-direction include vision and direction, goal setting, responsibility, outcome-driven, and values. Effective leaders are self-directed. They have a vision and a true sense of north. They set goals and achieve them. They know results and that they are responsible for them. They're empowered to move forward with those outcomes as well. They live by and follow their values in order to create an environment through their leadership style, systems, and processes. They allow for others in their organization to also be self-directed and empowered. Self-direction has both a people focus and a process focus. So what is required to be a self-directed leader? Being a self-directed leader requires leading from the inside out and making a conscious commitment to your personal development, personal and professional development, and growth over time. It is not just a one-time event. Intention. So refer back to the traits of self-direction on the last slide. Intention means to want, believe, and expect that you will produce an outcome or a result. Think of vision or goals, for example. And introspection. So that's continual development and leadership. It requires a great deal of self-awareness. Introspection and awareness help to establish a baseline for where you are in leadership and or management and where you'd like to be going on an ongoing basis. So another question that I would like to ask the audience today is if anyone would like to share techniques they use for their own personal or professional development, whether it's at work or even outside of work. And again, you can raise your hand or send a chat, whatever is easier or best for you.
Oh, it looks like we've got one here from Nathan. He mentioned that learning and studying people's habits.
Absolutely. I know psychology truly is a big part of leadership and effective leadership. So Nathan, I definitely see how beneficial that would be to learn on your own and take that extra time to study.
And then Greg also posted that reading and staying up to date with current material is useful.
Absolutely. And Greg, that's even an example that I have personally. In today's world, there truly are countless resources at the tip of our fingertips. So we can, we can read things, we can listen to podcasts. There's YouTube videos on all of these topics as well. It's a simple Google search. So absolutely. Awesome. So we'll move on to, and then just to expand on that example a little bit here, the information does range from free to affordable to expensive, and then it can be maybe something you're doing for a long period of time, so months or years. It could be something that you're just doing for days, and even something that you're doing for minutes. I know there's a lot of podcasts that are short snippets of information, and you can really soak in a lot within even 7 to 15 minutes of your day. All right, so let's look at driver number 2, and this is people skills. Chances are you're already really aware, similar to when Nathan shared learning a little bit more about psychology, extremely aware of the importance of people skills and people's behaviors. But how well do we think it's applied day to day? One of the greatest causes of failure in executives and leaders is their inability to form effective teams and partnerships at all levels inside and outside of their organization. Consistent application of these proven principles in dealing with people is key, and it really does start with relationship building, again, starting with that strong foundation. Once your foundation is in place, and only when it's in place, can you gain the willing cooperation of people, even when tough decisions have to be made. It really is all about trust and respect, and that does go both ways. And I know even with, again, referring back to our diverse work environment, regardless of generation, trust and respect are themes and values that are important to every single generation, especially in the workforce. And people skills can truly be challenging. They might not come naturally to every single leader and manager. So we're going to turn our attention on the next slide towards solutions and the areas that we can focus on to improve those people skills. So people skill development really does start with developing excellent interpersonal relationships. It's an essential management skill. To succeed, you have to be conscious about building strong relationships in a work environment, and it will be important to put that know-how into practice on a daily basis. And challenge yourself to apply the same effort towards every single employee. You might have employees that are easier to have conversations with, you have a deeper relationship with, but it is important to build a healthy relationship with every single employee. The second one is engaging in authentic conversations. So it really does start with being a good listener, but you also need to direct the discussions you're having. Allow time, for example, to start with short personal items, and then you can focus the conversation on a purpose. So then this still allows that employee to be heard as an individual, as a person, but your conversation is still related to work and it still has a purpose. This will help you to uncover professional hopes and dreams of employees. It can help you understand and appreciate your team as individuals, their strengths, maybe their aspirations, challenges, and what makes each of them tick even. Once you know that, then you can do something about it and you can be more proactive. Third is recognizing the unique talents and rewarding accomplishments. You may have noticed special talents and abilities of certain employees, but have you ever mentioned it to them? Have you ever told Jessica that she's great at diffusing situations? Have you ever told someone that you really appreciate the work that they're doing, or let someone know that maybe is feeling a little bit down that, hey, I noticed that you're not yourself today. You did a really great job yesterday. Is there anything I can do to help? These really short, small touch points can really make a big difference. It can increase motivation, increase engagement, strengthen relationships, and increase employee happiness. It doesn't have to be weekly or daily, every 3 to 4 weeks, just really when you do catch someone doing something that's appreciated. And here's where I'd like to share an example here at PSI. Something that we do to help develop our own people skills is through what we call Friday huddles. And these huddles are important. They show not only we have a chance to sit in a big room together, kind of decompress from the end of the week, share what each of us worked on, share our own personal wins. It's a chance for management to share organizational wins or share things that are on the horizon. And then you can also go into personal things. What are you doing this weekend? How are those home projects coming along? How are certain family members doing? Gives everyone an opportunity to stay informed of what's going on in all departments and helps to strengthen the people skills within our own organization. So again, I'd like to open up another question here. What methods, if any, could you see working for your companies? Do you feel that you could hone in on developing more interpersonal relationships, take a few more minutes each day for authentic conversations, or even working on your words of affirmation to employees? Would anyone like to share something that maybe they'd like to focus on for their organization?
I actually had one for my last job that worked really well. I had a staff of 8, so I had a smaller staff, which makes things a little bit easier. But I made sure to at least by every other month have, within a 2-month period, have had coffee with each person at some point during that 2 months. And then it gave a chance. Some of it was work related, but some of it wasn't. And it was a good balance of getting to know people and getting information in a non-threatening environment kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to just really meet up with your employee, do those check-ins, see how they're doing. And then like you said, it can be some personal, but also some work-related things too.
Nathan has a good post here. He says he likes to focus less on emotions and more on respect and professionalism, which is still very doable, I think, in all the ways that you're mentioning, which is a good way to go.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I think we can find that balance there too. Awesome. Well, thank you both for sharing. We'll go on to our next driver. So this is driver number 3. These are our process skills. So process skills start with, again, a strong and solid foundation. You'll kind of see that theme run throughout all of these drivers. We really have to establish a baseline. So effective leaders demonstrate the ability to plan, innovate, delegate, utilize time efficiently, analyze problems, and make decisions. The greatest people skills in the world can easily fail if someone does not have sound processes and systems that are in place to support them. Leaders have a deep understanding that there is a delicate balance between people and process. Too much emphasis on one at the expense of the other can potentially lead to failure. So, what types of processes can be put in place to improve productivity? So these are process skills that leaders and managers can implement to improve personal productivity. So your own productivity as a leader or as a manager. So you might find that everyone in your team wants your attention, so much so that you don't have a lot of time to work on your own individual tasks. So in this case, we suggest setting a period of time that you call your DND, or do not disturb time. During these few blocks throughout the week, let the rest of your team know you're not going to be available for meetings, as you're going to use this time to focus on the work that you specifically do need to get done. The second suggestion is analyze and eliminate. So analyzing everything that you do and eliminating tasks that add little to no value or distract you from an actual goal that you have. So leaders do need to focus on finding ways to work smarter, not harder, something we do hear pretty often. And remember, there really is a physical limit to number of hours in the day. So some tips that we have when it comes to analyzing and eliminating are writing down a short list of your daily priorities. What do you want to get done today? What do you want to get done during the week? Write down physically with pen and paper the most important 3 to 5 tasks that come to your mind. If you give yourself clear deadlines, and spend about 15 to 20 minutes on this at the beginning of your day before unexpected tasks pop up or steal your time and attention. You might find that your day, the layout of your day is more efficient and you're able to flow from task to task and you're not drawing your attention away. So you're spending 15 minutes here but not fully completing it before you find another email or before you have a disruption. This can help you pick up where you left off if that stuff happens, or it can help you just, again, flow through that if you have a day where there's maybe surprisingly not a lot of interruptions or not a lot of other things that are pulling your attention. And so the next one that we have on here truly can be hard for many and can vary depending on your type of work, but it is to break your inbox dependence with the disclaimer when possible. Something that is really interesting is that checking your email too often can turn into reactive behavior versus proactive behavior. Having regular times where you can read and reply to messages and resist temptation to respond to the emails that ping constantly, can help you to be more efficient with your time. Keep in mind, again, that any or all of these suggestions truly can be catered to your needs and catered to what might make sense for your organization. Some additional suggestions when it comes to processes for personal productivity, specifically when it does come to email, is to stop wasting time writing the same emails. So that might look like developing a template. You can create reusable text blocks for composing in Microsoft Outlook or Microsoft Word, and you can add that to your email with just a few short clicks. Again, something like that is pretty easy to learn or to look up on Google or YouTube, see maybe what other organizations are doing. So for me, something that I like to share is just that. That's a strategy that really comes in handy for me. I write a lot of the same emails, so I do automate that process by creating folders with email templates. But something that I am looking to implement personally is to break down that inbox dependence. And so there's going to be a need to be flexible with that. But I think that when you can, again, devote that time to checking your inbox 3 or 5 times each day at certain times, you're able to really focus that time and not micromanage or not multitask, which in the end might dampen some of that productivity. Does anyone have any strategies that they would like to try to implement to improve their own personal productivity, or even strategies that they have used and they've noticed a benefit towards their productivity before?
I don't see anyone responding yet, but I'll say I totally agree with you about the inbox thing. I do it 3 times a day and I try to follow that. Oh, here we have one, someone else. Greg says that inbox management is important. Don't let the arrival of emails supersede what other duties or priorities we have. I totally agree with.
And I do have to say I stole that one from Carrie. She does a great job of really being effective with her time and purposeful. And I think that it's shown me just how important that can truly be.
Oh, Nathan has a really good one, especially related to construction, training people on equipment so that he doesn't have to run harder and run machines, which is really important for leaders, is to delegate those tasks out and train other people how to do them so that you can free up your time.
Right. Yep. The more that we can hand off and that trust, that responsibility that we can build in our employees, in the end does benefit us in a lot of ways. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing. And so still staying on driver number 3, we're going to look at process skills for employee productivity. And so as a manager or a leader, it's one of the core responsibilities to help your team do more of their best work. whether this means coaching them to prioritize work, helping them optimize their daily schedule, or maybe ironically, making sure that you are not getting in their way. So here are some suggestions. We again encourage you to think about which ones, if any, make sense for your team or for your organization. So the first one is information sharing. So there's a good chance that a few of your employees or team members are just curious. They might have just a lot of questions. Questions are always good, but there's no such thing as a stupid, and we know there's no such thing as a stupid question, but you can't be a productive employee if you have to keep going back to notifications to respond to messages and straight emails and keep multiple people in the loop on the same topic. So the best way to fix this is maybe to start making more of your team's information accessible or public internally, of course. And this way, when someone has a question, maybe they know where they need to go to find it themselves. Remember the Friday huddles that we shared last time? This is kind of a way that we keep employees in the loop with things. And so people do know, oh, a Friday huddle is coming up. Maybe I can ask this question then, or maybe I will be told the answer to my question at that time. So this is a really great way, again, for curious members to stay in the loop. The next one is to set clear expectations and timelines. Many time management issues do boil down to and can be traced back to poor leadership. So this might include not knowing what work to prioritize, having trouble saying no even when you have a full workload, feeling overwhelmed with way too many tasks, procrastinating or not finishing what you start because there wasn't a clear timeline made in the beginning, and always being in reactive mode due to an unclear strategy. So we understand that this can feel really overwhelming as a leader as well. The challenging of managing not only your time, but having to step in and help others. The silver lining is that often all it takes is observation and some communication. So some questions that individuals, leaders, managers can ask themselves are, do employees need help from me? Are they clear on their tasks? Give them the permission to tell you where your expectations maybe don't match up with their reality or their assumptions. This is not a failure by any means on anyone's part, but it's a way to continue the conversation around how they can do their best work. Once you've gotten clear on expectations, a next step might be to make a timeline for how you'll continue to check in and see if things are moving in the right direction. It's important to look at this not as micromanaging, but rather, excuse me, not micromanaging, but rather this is an opportunity for them to improve on their skills and develop some more of that self-sufficiency. And autonomy will truly help set an organization up to be more self-sufficient. So similar to Nathan training individuals on equipment that they're going to need to use. This helps free up Nathan's time. He's able to focus on the things that really do need 100% of his attention, and he has confidence that, hey, I've trained this employee, they know what they're doing, and they feel comfortable with that. From here, you have more time to do what you do best, lead or manage the organization. And finally, the last one, or last suggestion we have for improving employee productivity is time audits. So this helps employees to discover where their time is going. This involves your team writing down their intentions and beliefs about how they spend their time, and then actually tracking how they work. Again, you have to use this opportunity as to let employees know that this is an exercise to help them rather than something that's going to be used against them or affect their position in some way. You have to really make sure that you follow through on that promise and communicate that. Once the data has been collected, sit down with the team member and think about and ask these questions. How well is your time aligned with the work that matters the most to you? What gets in the way of spending time on your priorities? What tasks maybe took more time than you thought, and which tasks maybe took less time than you thought? By having an open and non-judgmental conversation, both you and the team member may be able to uncover what, if anything, is holding them back. So I'd like to share an example. At our organization, we use desk audits every once in a while. And so what this is we tape a piece of paper to our desk and then simply record record daily the tasks and the time it took to do them. This is, you know, with a desk audit, it's right in front of us because most of us are behind our desks throughout the majority of the day. And that way it doesn't become another burden. It's just right there in front of us. The purpose is to help management know when to hire more help or even shift job duties after they're able to reflect on that individual's desk audit or even your personal desk audit. Again, it's designed as an exercise to really help employees, and it's critical that that is communicated as such. And time management really isn't just an individual issue. As leaders, we do have an opportunity to help guide the team towards becoming more productive and confident workers. While it might take an upfront investment of your time, the return really is going to be more than worth it. So, a question we have for improving employee productivity. Does anyone want to share any thoughts on why they feel an employee might struggle with time management or prioritization? Maybe a second follow-up question might be, does anyone have examples of things that they've used in their own workforce that they've noticed has helped increase employees' productivity?
Oh, we've got one comment from Nathan, or a couple comments coming in. So Nathan says, for me, it's being scatterbrained, too much to do in a short period of time. So prioritizing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Todd says distractions outside of work, not focusing on the task in hand. And I think a lot of people at workplaces have that problem or issue to deal with.
Absolutely. And I think it really does go back to the fact that a lot of these are things that just have to be revisited really often. It's almost like you're never going to really fully master any one of these, and then you just never have distractions ever again. But it's great that there's that self-awareness there.
I know at my at the prior place where I worked, we had a lot of group projects that we worked on, and it was hard to communicate all the different pieces. And so we used a platform called Trello, and it was really great to show what everyone was doing and who was doing what and when it was due. And it just set up a good tool for communication, which I feel is the backbone of almost everything.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and another comment came in too from Greg. There's always going to be conflicting or multiple priorities that can pull people in different directions with little notice. That affects productivity. Trying to specialize duties will help.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Next driver we are going to look at will be communication. And so with communication, solid questioning and listening skills are really at the top of the list. The effective leader understands that even a new employee on day one of their job might be able to offer insights that add value. There are ample opportunities to listen and learn in the organization. Communication really is the glue that holds an organization together. Similar to what Carrie just said, it's the backbone of the organization. Whether they're styled as bold and out there, of one of just quiet confidence, effective leaders can really inspire their team in many different ways. And so what does communication all include? It includes body language, listening, asking, sharing, in a word, dialogue. The ability to influence depends on effective communication. And although many leaders tout their communication skills, Executives and managers still might default to a dictatorial approach rather than a persuasive one. And so again, they might believe that maybe that's a more effective way to communicate, whether or not they realize they're doing it. But this approach is a little bit more about informing and not communicating. Effective communication is a little bit less about talking and more about listening and fostering that open dialogue. This is done through asking the right questions, sharing information, participating, and building consensus. Leaders must become increasingly better at these inquiry skills versus their telling skills. Great inquiry skills help employees obtain clarity, courage, and ownership of their recommendations. And so next we're going to look at some ways to improve those skills and also some examples of those types of skills. So inquiry skills can be improved by maintaining a respectful and charge-neutral tone, asking open-ended questions, being genuinely inquisitive, making it safe by not interrogating, and asking others to be specific. Here's some examples of some good inquiry questions. What do you want to have happen? What have you tried already? What is the most important thing to do now? And how can I help you? Communication is key to the growth and success, but it can also easily get in the way of getting real work done. If you want to help your team do their best work, put policies in place maybe to protect their time. As Zapier CTO and co-founder Brian Hemling explains when talking about how to hire a remote engineering team, you need to find a balance between regular communication for building company culture and heads down time for connecting to the company purpose. So really, again, finding a balance between the personal and the professional. And if you're unsure about how your delivery sounds, you can spend time practicing with maybe a trusted resource outside of your organization. Another strategy that I myself have even used has been to record and then listen back. When I'm listening back, sometimes it is painful, but I'm paying attention to my tone, body language. Do I seem sincere in my approach? And are my questions that I'm asking relevant, or are they vague? You might find that there are some areas for opportunity if you go through either one of these exercises. But remember, self-awareness really is a key factor in developing a stronger leadership approach. So it can be kind of uncomfortable, but in the end, it will really help to build upon those skills. And finally, driver number 5, accountability. Holding others accountable, if done correctly, can help create a more motivated team. If done incorrectly, the opposite is most likely going to happen. Leaders know how to close the gap between expected performance and actual results. They coach, guide, support, and train others to achieve mutually agreed upon goals. They provide direction and they help to manage change. They know that delegation is not an act of giving up power. They focus on how to empower employees, which will drive them to do their best work. So next, we are going to break down some strategies to become more accountable, again, and look at some examples and some questions that we have when it comes to accountability. Whoop, went backwards. There we go. So here are just 4 strategies to becoming more accountable. First, honesty. This requires sometimes setting aside some personal pride, admitting own mistakes, being completely honest with yourself and others. Honest leaderships become more accountable by reviewing their own role in a situation and devising a reasonable solution to resolve issues, conflict, and challenges in an authentic and genuine fashion. Next is responsibility. Accountable leaders voluntarily say, "I'm sorry" when something has gone awry, and that they are responsible for that wrongdoing. They take that ownership. The backdrop to a real apology is the focus on making amends, committing to what needs to be done to fix the situation, and executing on it as promised. By apologizing and creating a plan to fix the situation, accountable leaders allow a focus on the end goal rather than on the problem. Next is seeking input. Accountable leaders seek input from others. This might be bosses, peers, direct reports, friends, and partners. Employees do really like to be a part of a solution. And in our organization, we do see leaders practice accountability through seeking input on an almost daily basis. When employee input is requested, it helps to reinforce that their opinion matters. And even though someone is considered a leader, they might not always have the answers or even all the bases covered. It's important to remember we're all human. And if we do seek input, we can seek opportunities to initiate change and really make improvements. And last is non-avoidant. Accountable leaders don't avoid responsibility. They don't procrastinate and they don't under or overcommit. They know how to say no and when to ask for more. Again, we're all human, so you still might have some of those things where you over or undercommit, and that's completely understandable, but this is just something to keep in mind as we're working to become more accountable. So before agreeing to new tasks, new deliverables, new to-dos, it's important maybe to review your schedule and know whether you have the physical time required to do the work. Make sure that this work can also be done on time and with quality. If unsure about whether or not they can commit, leaders say no to the tasks. In this way, accountable leaders can provide their own insurance that they won't let promised work go undone. So maybe here are just some questions to think about on this slide. Are your leaders accountable? How have you gone about developing them as accountable or developing yourself as accountable? And are there any areas that you see in front of you on this slide that you feel would make sense to apply to your own organizational development? So now it's time to take these steps over the bridge and really apply this information. So first, again, take into account your diverse workforce. Leadership and management skills need to be more effective than ever in today's ever-changing workforce, and this might require some new skills or even skill development. We reviewed the 5 success drivers to help develop leadership skills: self-direction, people skills, process skills. And remember, those process skills even have their own personal process skills and organization or employee process skills that can be brushed up on or reviewed or have new ones implemented. And then communication and accountability. And then last, if these drivers are intentionally applied and practiced daily or when applicable, they will inevitably trickle down to the other areas of your organization. Remember, you can adapt and apply these items that make the most sense for your type of business or for your organization. It's important to start small and focus on one area to eliminate overwhelm, and then you can build up from there. So for an example, I'm going to revisit my own personal process skills, but I want to be more specific than that. I want to analyze and eliminate. I'm going to start with making a list of my top priorities at the beginning of each day. But I do know from personal experience that I can write out a list that is way too long or way too unrealistic, and then it almost becomes more discouraging than anything. So instead of thinking I'm going to create 2 columns, I want to do one column that has the non-negotiables or those items that have a deadline, those things that really need to be done during that day. And then I want a second column of things that I can do if I have unexpected time gaps, kind of those, a wish list in a sense, or a midterm goal list, things that can wait, but you'd like to start devoting some time to. This way, I feel like my time was going to be more purposely spent, but I don't have to feel guilty if things don't get crossed off from like that wish list or that midterm goal column. So again, I'd like to open up a question if anyone would like to share any success drivers that they plan to focus on in the weeks ahead or the days ahead, or anything that really spoke to them as a success driver that they have already started to practice. All right, so we'll go over to this final slide we have for you before we wrap up today.
We have one comment that came in.
Oh, awesome.
It does say making sure communication is clear. Clarity is the key.
Definitely. Perfect. So before we really do wrap up today, I'd like to leave you with a quote and just kind of recap that it's important to note that if you take any of the 5 success drivers from the slideshow away and leave any of the other 4, you might be looking at an incomplete manager or an incomplete leader. All 5 are mission critical to long-term success and results. And by way of maybe a simple summary, here are the words from Max De Pree, the former CEO of Herman Miller and the author of Leadership as an Art. Manage the system and lead the people. So I'd like to thank everyone for their time this morning, and again, open it up for any closing comments, any maybe questions anyone has, or even feedback.
A couple other comments did come in while you were doing the quote, which applied. Also, being frequent communication is essential, often not done, sometimes too busy, which is, I think, happens all the time.
Yep.
Communication has to be a priority. And another comment being that there's good information, and thank you. Another person, this is a good question. You had mentioned podcasts for further learning earlier. Did you have any specific ones that you'd recommend?
Oh my goodness, yes. The School of Greatness is one of my all-time favorites. That one is by Lewis Howes. He has speakers from all different walks of life. It's really interesting to hear not only the way that they've built their organizations, they have really gone through the trials and errors. That is one of just like my all-time favorite podcasts, and it's kind of one that I always refer back to. Impact Theory by Tom Bilyeu is another really great one. Again, has a lot of different speakers. Tim Ferriss, he is an author of the 4-Hour Workweek. He has a really great podcast. He also has a book called Tribe of Mentors, and it again goes through just the ways, he really just asks, how did you build your business? How did you get here? And so that's a really great podcast as well. So School of Greatness, Lewis Howes, Impact Theory, Tom Bilyeu, and Tim Ferriss's podcast. I cannot remember the name of it, but Tim Ferriss, he has a really great podcast. So if you just search his name, it will pop up.
Maybe you can put together a list and we can send it out.
Absolutely.
I'm probably not spelling names right.
Yeah, Tom Bilyeu is a difficult one. I can definitely do that. I'll get that sent out. And I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning. We'll have a recorded slideshow up as well, so that if anyone wants to revisit it or share it, we can definitely direct you to that.
And another comment is, thank you. Today was very informative, great information.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate everyone's time. I know, again, we're all busy, so I appreciate it as well. Awesome. Well, we will wrap up. Thanks, Carrie, again for your facilitation.
All right, no problem. Everyone have a great day.